Thank you for that. So that comprehensive intro. That was good. It really it helps me in sort of like putting you in the right context. So you were in the middle of South African dynamic politics of race, and we sometimes don't realize how those politics shape who we become. So you are actually, I wouldn't say a victim, but you are the outcome of the integration of universities post-1994, right?
That's right.
And tell me, when that happened, this must have been obviously one expected it to happen somewhere, but the way it happened must have been a shock in the system of so many of you.
Sorry, Sam, can you just repeat that?
I'm saying that the move to integrate many institutions of learning integrate them and consolidate them into particular ones must have been a shock in the system for many educators and administrators.
Yeah, Sam, it was, and for me especially, because part of my journey through ML Sultan Technikon, up to the Second World Year of my being there, I got involved with the Staff Association. We set up a new Staff Association, which later became national and became unionized. And I was actually the founding president of the union. So we obviously had to participate in a lot of discussions. I attended a lot. Professor Bengu, the first Minister of Education post-apartheid.
Yes.
He believed in broad consultation. So I spent a lot of time engaging with various people. Some of them are now the student leaders then and are now premiers of provinces, etc. But I think there was a lot of work done putting policies in place. And that was Professor Bengu's approach. He was very consultative.
Yeah.
Asmal wasn't. He'd bring things to the table and you had to agree with him. And so even though we had issues, we agreed some of the mergers had to happen, but we also agreed some shouldn't happen. Now, we were the first merger, ML Sultan Technikon and Natal Technikon. And the reason they gave was that the proximity of the two institutions made sense.
Yes.
That they should merge. What some of us were saying, of course, the cultures were different. But okay, but we accepted that. But I think some of the mergers should not have happened. If you take some of the institutions that merged into what was Pretoria Technikon, the white one, and you got Northwest at Shoshanguva and Technikon, TNT Technikon, Northern Transvaal, who were basically in their own communities.
Yes.
And I think by merging them with Pretoria Technikon, he killed them. Or Pretoria University. Like Medunsa was first pushed into Pretoria University. And that it's only after Dr. Nzimande came in that he separated Medunsa again.
Yeah.
And I think some of those mergers should not have happened. At the same time, Asmal left the Big Four alone, the Big Four white institutions alone. He didn't touch them. The ones that should have been transferred. And that's why you see some of them, they may have black leadership, but are they really transformed? I go to Pretoria University and on the city campus, it's 90% white. They'll tell you they've got a lot of black students, but those black students are at campuses in the townships. So the transformation to me is still an issue. I know we in the unions those days, I was also a coordinator of what we call the Higher Education Employees Forum, the convener of that, which had all the unions in higher education, NIHAWU and others. And I was the convener of that. And one of the things we did discuss was that it's a pity that higher education did not also go to the TRC as well. Because higher higher education, apartheid higher education, not only killed people, it changed people's directions in life. It stopped people getting educated. It stopped people furthering their education, and all of those should have come out in the open. And unfortunately did. And therefore some of those things continued, and some I think continue even now. And you've seen that. I mean, if you remember the case that with Free State University and the cleaner, and this what the students did to the cleaner a couple of years back. I mean, those things. That's why I say transformation still has to happen.
So are there transformation units within universities right now, or they just also don't exist, and it's just integrated into the normal HR work?
Well, when we had these discussions with Professor Pengu, what was conceived was sort of broad transformation forums, the BTS, which will be looking at the transformation issues. Later on, after Prof. Pengu left, etc., these became the IF, the Institutional Forum. And somewhere along the line, my own opinion, they lost that agenda. Some of them are strong, but they seem to lose that agenda. And one of the reasons, I mean, I know what happened in our case, where you have someone with middle management who is chairing that, you can be sure real transformation issues won't be addressed unless the management supported it. And as I said, I think some institutions have done well in making sure they got African leadership, etc. The transformation lower down hasn't happened.
It's still a work, an unfinished work.
I think there's a lot more work. After so many years of democracy, we should be going to a place to say now that all our kids are treated equally. And it's not. And the people up there put tests in way, or put some sort of assessment mechanisms in way, so when you accept students, you don't necessarily accept them of all colors. Because the private schools sometimes have an advantage. And you know who goes to private schools mostly.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. Now,
so basically as the integration, so the technical Natal and the MLS Sultan merged, and then they gave birth to Durban University of Technology, right?
Yeah, it was first called Durban Institute of Technology, and then it turned to Durban University of Technology, yes.
I see. And at that time when the integration happened, you were a lecturer. You were not yet on the management side.
Let me step back a bit. After being a lecturer at ML Sultan, and as I said, being involved with the Staff Association, setting up the National Union, etc., I also got elected as Dean of the Faculty of Science at ML Sultan.
Yeah.
So I finished one term. In my second term, the management asked me, they wanted me to head what was called the Cooperative Education Department. It was the first department where we wanted to centralize the engagement with industry.
Yeah.
Because one of the things the management said was that universities act slowly, generally, because you've got so many structures to go through, committees, faculty board, senate, etc. And they needed some department within the university that can engage with industry at the drop of a hat. So they decided to have this cooperative education department. Now, one of the reasons the vice rector asked me to head that was that the program I was doing, clinical technology, we had the best placement in the country, around the country. To the extent that at that time, Cape Technicon also had that program. But the technologists at Kurteskir Hospital told Cape Technicon to drop their program because they only were going to take students from Durban, meaning ML Sultan. And the reason was they had a lot more engagement with me as the head of that particular program. So when the management saw this, they said, well, I seem to have a knack of engaging with industry, so could I head this? And that's when I took over that position, and which was engagement. So the time we merged, that's the position I was holding as the director, the head at that time of Cooperative Education at ML Sultan Technical.
And you had stopped lecturing?
I had actually stopped when I was dean as well, because you couldn't be a dean and lecture. And of course, when I became head of Cooperative Education, because I was out of office so much, there was no chance of me lecturing. In fact, the vice rector that appointed me, Professor Anshu Pajati, just you know her from the SASCE board.
Yes.
She said at that time when I was appointed, if I see you on campus, it means you're not doing your job.
Yeah.
You know, which was sense. So maybe she also wanted me off campus because of my union engagement.
Yeah.
But I also saw the positive effect I would have with students. If I could get more of them employed, that would be the benefit. So at the time of merger, that's where we were. I was still involved with the unions, and as I said, that's one of the reasons I was able to have a go at Professor Kader Asmal as well. You know.
So you were using the union head to engage on those issues of integration of universities.
I was using there, but now it was also informed by industry as well, because as we said, we have these industry partners that kept on telling us, but they're not consulting us on the mergers. Because some of them, I think, would have had a different opinion of which were the centers of excellence and which were not. You know, and so I did take that up as well. I wasn't opposed to the mergers. As I said, some should happen. But I think Professor Asmar killed a lot of things. The teacher colleges that were in communities, the nursing colleges. It brought everything into universities which shouldn't have been. You know, so you got now nurses who are doing degrees, but not getting the work experience in the hospitals, for example. You know, so also then from my cooperative education point of view, I could see what these mergers were going to do to the type of person we're putting out.
And I understand that there is an effort now to bring back such type of institutions. Ne?
I would support that, and I know that this is where Minister Nzimanda has had many discussions with us about this sort of thing to happen. You know, he's a strong supporter of work integrated learning, and believes that the students should get hands-on experience. And I think some of them, they were very good. As I said, the nurses that were training in the hospitals, in nursing colleges. I think the teachers in the communities as well. And the benefit you had of that is that the kids that came from their community studied in their community. So I think there was a lot more discipline because of that. And then, of course, the community benefited. Because students that were not from that community would stay with them, so households get... And we saw this at Shoshanguva as well with the technicon there. The students were renting or boarding with households that needed that income. So you created this microeconomy around that institution. And then the mergers will kill all of that.
I think such type of knowledge, such knowledge, sitting with people like yourself, and of course the entire SASCE, we'll talk about it later. This is so necessary, but we don't have to recreate. The concepts are there, the experience is there. It will probably be packaged differently in the context of the new education system we have. But certainly you can see that even entrepreneurship suffers from lack of such type of graduates. Because entrepreneurship is not the book, it's what you are able to do.
Exactly.
Great. So we may be making assumptions that everybody understands what we mean when we talk about cooperative education and work integrated learning. Perhaps let's just, what does it entail to have a cooperative education, and or maybe just describe it for those who don't know. and then we can go into details about the actual work you do as the head of the cooperative education at DUT.
Okay. Cooperative education is sometimes used synonymously with in-service training, experiential learning, or even work. For me, though, there's a difference. Cooperative education is exactly what the name says, the cooperation of the university with commerce and industry and government and community outside the university. So that's where the cooperative comes in.
Mm.
For me, one of those outcomes is experiential learning. And experiential learning could be in the form of work-integrated learning, where you're going for learning within companies, etc., or it could be community-based or service learning, where you work in communities.
Mm.
Now,
while you are still a student.
While you're still a student, yes. I think that's important, while you're still a student.
Mm.
So in work-integrated learning or in-service training, as it was called then, you actually integrating the students' academic learning with real-life work experience.
Mm.
And so it has to be in a relevant setting. You can't, for example, take a mechanical engineer and make him work as a PRO in an office. That wouldn't be well.
Mm.
He would have to be in a company that offers mechanical engineering. So let's say, like, for example, Toyota or even some other companies.
Mm.
So I think for us that was important, and that's why now all the universities of technology or the Technicons have these cooperative education centers.
Mm.
That was one of the things we had to make sure, because many companies exploited students. So they would take them, and all they did was photocopying or making tea for everybody else. And then we had to say, no, that's not what we want to do. Mm. So we then set up partnerships with the companies to make sure there's relevant experience. So every company we place our student has to be workplace approved. So we have to make sure that the workplace is approved, that they can offer the training. And I think that's important. It's not a new concept. Learning by doing is probably the first type of learning ever.
Mm.
I mean, if you take your son Goma, how does one learn to be a Sangoma?
Mm.
There's no book learning.
Yeah.
You apprentice yourself to a Sangoma.
Yes.
And that's around the world. And that's why, Sam, the German system was so strong as well. Is that apprenticeship.
Yes.
And essentially, this is what we wanted in terms of work-integrated learning. We've done it. We've been doing it with doctors for ages. They had to do their internship before they qualify. It was the same with nurses. It was the same with teacher training. But people didn't call it work-integrated learning. So when these terms came up, cooperative education, work-integrated learning, the traditional universities seem to think it was only for the Technicons or universities of technology. Mm. But yet they've been doing the same thing, and getting funding for it. So essentially that is the whole aim of work-integrated learning, to integrate the academic learning in the classroom to real-life work experience.
Mm. And then you have created structures at the universities of technology called Cooperative Education Department. Now, obviously, I assume, and then this is where all the components of delivering this type of service or program are housed. So but it doesn't necessarily mean that if you haven't created a structure, you can't participate in the work integrated, or you can't offer work integrated learning. However, once you offer work integrated learning, you're required to do certain things like administrative work, coordination work, and all those things.
Yeah, no, agreed. The starting point for the work integrated learning is the academic department itself,
yes,
where the student learns. The cooperative education departments have come in to try to manage the process. And in none of the universities of technology now that we have a fully centralized cooperative education department. It is actually integrated with the faculties. So you work with the faculties. Some institutions have faculty co-op coordinators, and just a central admin office, and others have more people in the central office and fewer in the faculties.
Oh, I see. That which we see as public people and we call it cooperative is actually just the admin sec part of the co-op structure.
Yeah, but you'll find with different universities, some of them have at least one faculty coordinator, and a department or a program may have a world coordinator for that particular program only. Now, Sam, that's important because if you take myself, coming with a health science background, I'm able to set up a relationship, let's say, with Sogo-san for our hospitality students.
Yes.
But I don't know the hospitality program. It has to be a lecturer from that department that will do the workplace approval, that will monitor and evaluate the students.
Yes.
My job is to set up relationships and maintain those relationships. But we need those people from the faculties to come on board.
Yes.
And I think that's important because it also means that the students in the classroom are getting benefit of these lectures while going out in industry on a regular basis.
Yeah. And here's the very interesting part that I always wanted to explore. Is it a mandatory thing to offer work integrated learning as a faculty, or is it a voluntary thing? Is it a choice, or should it be a mandatory, or should it be left as a choice? What is your view there?
Okay, if I go back and from to the technicons, the co-op was mandatory for engineering and science programs.
Yes.
Across the country, and health science programs all have it. They still all have it. With some of the management courses, accounting courses and all, it was left to the faculty. And as I said, health sciences is very strongly mandatory. It still is at the UOTs. What has been said in the last 2 years is that the engineering deans at the universities of technology decided that they do not want world anymore. This is in contravention of the white paper on post-school education and training. And I know Mr. Minister Nzimande is quite angry about it. And we're still trying to engage him as SASCE about it. The industries didn't want it. You know, every program of ours, whether it's mechanical engineering, electronic engineering, etc., we have what we call an advisory board. The advisory board is made up of people from industry. They were very anti-dropping the world. And they said so very clearly. Organizations like CIPSA were willing to take it up with the minister directly. And we're still trying to engage the minister on that. But of course it went ahead because they wanted degrees. So you're now getting BSc or engineering degrees at the UOTs, but without the work. Yet you could have degrees. I mean, previously the technicons had diplomas. You could have degrees with work. If you see our overseas institutions, Canada is a good example, University of Waterloo and others, and even in Thailand, they produce students with degrees, but they've got a strong work component. Your medical degree is a medical degree, but it's very strongly will-orientated as well. So they use that as an excuse, and somehow they were allowed to drop it. As I said, I know the minister is not happy. We have engaged him quite a bit on this. And in fact, at our institution now that the one dean has moved out, some of the departments are requesting they want the world back. The advisory board, some of them are saying they were also misled, they want the world back. So I think that's going to happen in some institutions as well. The one institution that did not drop the world was the Mangosuthu University of Technology. They kept their diplomas and their work. And I think people also forgot the hierarchy in engineering of what happens in the workplace. You've got a technician, then you have a technologist, then you have an engineer. And it's, I think, 12 technicians to 6 technologists to 1 engineer. Now by making the UOT qualifications engineers as well, you're oversupplying on the engineering side, but there's no technologists. So then that's why industry were objecting to it. They said there was a rightful place for each qualification. And of course, their argument is that lifelong learning still happens. Some of our technologists could go up to do their masters and their doctorates, having started with a diploma. Interestingly, the Irish universities, which are very strong on core, are now mooting an apprenticeship doctorate. So someone who's purely in the apprentice line of work, an artisan, could get a doctorate in that field without going through the normal PhD route, which is purely academic or research-based.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow. And what is the setup? What type of setup do you have at the DUT Cooperative Education Department? Which faculties are active? Which are the partners you work with out in the industry? And how is the uptake of WIL at the Durban University of Technology?
Okay, DUT has been strong because, as I said, we came from with a strong background of the technicon that you got employment from. That's what the students heard. And in fact, even at DUT, that continued for a long time when we had WIL in all the programs. At the moment, the WIL is strong in health sciences. It's always been there. It's growing in the management sciences. Now all their programs have at least 6 months of WIL. In some of the art departments, education, etc., it's there. And as I said, we're trying to bring it back into engineering as well. Applied science as well. Some have dropped it, but others have kept it. So it is there. Now, the interesting part of how important it was to DUT. A couple of years back, I had one of the career officers from UK that didn't come to see me. And she said she was sent by the students. And they had one question. Why do the DUT students get jobs before them? So I pointed out clearly, it's the will. And around the world, they've shown that the students have will, are more employable, and do get jobs quicker than even if you had a higher degree. So the status of the degree didn't matter. What the student could do was important. And as I said, a lot of countries around the world, universities, even Ivy League universities are adopting WIL and core now. To say companies are all saying that now. They want people that are competent, not just with book learning and certificates, but people that can do. So that's why the WIL became important. And research has shown that as well. A couple of years back, I think it was 2015, 2016, the rating system of universities in South Africa. DUT came out number 1 in terms of external engagement. Yeah. So and that for me was the key. Now, more recently, someone who's doing her master's at UJ, she called me at the beginning of this year. She said she got surprised when she's looking at it. The institution that has the best employer relationships is DUT. And I said, yes, so I had to explain to her the whole WIL process and why we do it and how much of time I and my staff have to spend outside the institution engaging with companies building relationships.
Yeah. It doesn't happen on its own just because you are an institution. It takes 2 ways, right?
Yeah. No, agreed. And I've always said, and that's why I like the term cooperative education. It means a cooperation both ways. Yeah. It's not just WIL where you place a student. So, for example, we service a relationship. If companies want other aspects where we have expertise and we can help them, then I do that. And I think you've seen that. I'll give you an example. A company that we're dealing with food technology, for example, suddenly told us they wanted new shops built. Yeah. So we referred them to our architecture department. Yeah. And they got it at a lot cheaper than they would have. So it's a win-win for us. And companies, for example, that need particular testing done, they don't have the equipment, they come to us, we do it in our chemistry labs or wherever it is. So this is what I talk about, the relationship. It's not a once-off, you take my student and after a year let him go. It's a relationship that we nurture over long periods of time.
And I assume that the perfect model is where you know very well at the company side who is mothering or father, is the right, I don't know if it's the right word. Let's say, who is taking care of these students when they are off campus and they are in the company. It's not like they are left alone to fend for themselves. The extension of the co-op model goes into the company, and somebody there, be either in HR or training and development department, whatever they call it, there has to be somebody. And I guess those are the things that you look at before even you partner with a particular institution or a particular company, right?
Yes, certainly. That's why I say we do a workplace approval first. Do they have the right people to train, to assist their students? Because the student will learn through working, but he's not there to work only.
Yes.
And that some people, of course, had, this was cheap labor coming to them, and we had to take that idea away from them. So we built up a relationship with companies who understand this now. And for them, it helps them, of course. And of course, now for companies, in terms of the BE scorecard, it helps them. In terms of the tax incentives, it helps them. So it's a lot of wins for them in terms of CETA funding, where the CETA pays the stipends of the students. There's a lot of pluses for them taking on students. We have to manage that wherever our students are placed, and our students are placed around the country and then some of them internationally as well. We have to manage that. And in the last few years at DUT, we've created an online system called OLMS, which was developed by our head of electronic engineering, that manages every aspect of the placement. The students put in the reports on the system, the supervisor moderates on the system, we get reports from them monthly, so we can pick up students at risk. If they're saying, for example, there's a problem at this company, where we are able to pick that up quickly. Our students overseas load their projects on it. It comes in real time. So it's a system, and I see the TVETs are interested in the system now as well, because it is a good way to market it. SASCE knows it well as well. But I think what is important is what you said, that we have the right people in the workplace. Now, my colleague in my department, Dr. Imsikwini, he recently did his doctorate, and one of the findings he found that when surveying students, who made the biggest impact on your training? It wasn't the academic professor. It was the workplace supervisor. Wow. By far. And you see now, Sam, that reminds me of what I told you of my first days at King Edward Pat Lab. I learned more at the lab than I did in the classroom. And this is exactly what, because students are learning to apply now, apply what they've learned. And the interesting part of that application is that when the students come back to us to do BTECs or Masters, or even come back to continue the same program, they tend to be a lot better students, because now they can see where it's applied.
Tell me and I assume that although you're training the students to become professionals, I will use the word professionals, but out of that, some could become employees. Now, in today's situation where employment is going down, how does WIL address entrepreneurship aspects of learning?
Sam, we believe that WIL is a critical component of entrepreneurship. You may get one or two students that has a real bright idea and develops that, but that's rare. But what we found, let's take someone who wants to open a bed and breakfast organization, a hospitality student. If he has not had the will, he doesn't know the supply chain for hospitality. He doesn't know the best practice. If he hasn't done his will in a particular hotel, etc. So placing them in improves their chances of becoming entrepreneurs. because they can also, while they're in there, they see the gaps.
Mm.
You know, and we've had an example of that. 2 years back, one of our students, or a group of students, were called for an interview to a company, a big company, in Pinetown.
Mm.
And they gave the students a tour first. And one of the questions they asked each student, what could you do to improve this company?
Yeah.
One bright spot gave them some ideas. And you know that company saved $2 million that year.
Wow.
That's why other reason the companies like the young minds to come in. They give them new ideas. So this is why I'm saying once they get the will, they have a better chance of becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Sam, we've seen this. I'm not sure if you heard that talk by the president of Waterloo University at World Africa 2 years back when he came down. Waterloo University in Canada has #1 in the world for employer relationships. They place 19,000 students a year in World. But the campus is open. They're also the #1 institution in Canada in terms of entrepreneurship and innovation, and the #1 in terms of research.
Wow.
But all the research is linked to companies and organizations
that they have relationship with.
That they have a relationship. So they don't accept a professor if he's not willing to engage with industry. And this is why entrepreneurship is also so high in that university, because there's an engagement with the companies. The students test the ideas with companies. The companies come on campus, hear them out, give them advice. So I think the whole issue of cooperative education actually adds emphasis to that training. By the way, the BlackBerry was invented on their campus. And that gives you an idea of how far innovation has gone there, because they have this open thing link with industry, which we're trying for, but we haven't got there yet.
But that's the model of the future.
That's the model of the future. I think more so with the online education that's coming in. Students don't need the physical university anymore except for certification.
Yes.
They can learn online. But how do you know if they're competent? The only way you're going to know that is to place them in the workplace. Under supervision. So I think the whole issue of will and corp is actually going to be stronger now than it has been because of the type of education we're moving into. And
also the technologies enable so much. I mean, if you're sitting at the campus and you want to have a meeting with all your will students all over the country, you don't need to go there physically. You can do a Zoom meeting and have a session.
Agreed. I think that's important as well, that we have to monitor the students when they're in the workplace. And that has been a failing at most of the institutions, not a failing, a shortcoming, because in between lectures, there's lectures, you have lecture loads, and they've got to still go and visit students. So you need dedicated people for that. Now with the online system, we can do chat rooms, we've got online calls, we can do Teams meeting or whatever with the supervisor and the students.
At first, when I used to think that universities of technologies are confined to their regions, and I was surprised when I go to hotels and I could be in Rustenburg, and then I meet a Will student, and then I said to, "What are you doing here?" He said, "No, I'm a Will student." I said, "Where do you study?" And he said, "Durban University of Technology." I said, "Really? You came all the way from Durban to come and do your will in Rustenburg?" So definitely, as you said, so even without this modern technology, there's nothing that stops universities to build relationship far away from where they are geographically.
Sam, agreed. And we've seen that across. And again, I give you an example. Years back when we were still technicons, the program I was running, clinical technology, a lot of our students were placed at Johannesburg Hospital. And what was then Technicon Witwatersrand tried to tell Joburg University, tried to tell the professional body for clinical technology that we should regionalize this training. So those training in KZN must only get placed in KZN, and those in what was then Transvaal should only get placed in Transvaal. The technologists at Johannesburg Hospital disagreed strongly and told them, no, we like the students from Durban, we'll continue taking the students from Durban. If you want to compete with them, you got to up your game.
Yeah, wow, that's good.
You know.
That's good. So basically, we must get out of this mindset of thinking that colleges and institutions of learning are placed in a locality for the purpose of serving the locality. They just happen to be there, but they could serve anybody from anywhere in the world or anywhere in the country.
Agreed. And anywhere in the world. Sam, let me give an example of that. For the last 22 years, we've had a relationship at first ML Sultan Technicon and then DUT with Disney World in Florida.
Yeah.
In Orlando.
Yeah.
Every year, apart from this year, every year they would come down and take students, our hospitality or tourism students, to work at Disney World. Now, you know, Disney is service excellence, so it benefited our students no end to go there.
Yeah.
So we encouraged it. And here's an example of the stats they gave us. I'm going back about 5 years.
Yeah.
They said they had 36 places for Southern Africa. 32 places for Southern Africa. 26 of those places went to DUT students.
Really?
It was, and they said, it's the relationship, apart from the quality of the students, it's the relationship. So these relationships have developed across South Africa as well as internationally. And I think that's the difference maybe we to some of the other institutions. I focus on relationships, not on placement, but on engaging and on relationships. And we build those. And of course, the students have to also satisfy the quality required.
Yeah.
But we make sure that happens as well from the academic side.
Wow. That's wonderful. I mean, that is a global experience of note.
Yeah. Let me give you a local one. The university of choice for the South African Navy is DUT. They're based in Simonstown, but the university of choice is DUT. And we've had an engagement from a long time with them, from the time of Admiral Modimo.
Yes.
You know, who actually got an honorary doctorate from us.
Yeah.
And we still, one of the admirals is doing his doctorate through us as well. So it doesn't matter where you are. I think it's how you address the needs of the organization that you're dealing with, how you build the relationships are important, going forward. And we've got a similar relationship with some of the municipalities in different regions as well, where they've asked us to come in and help engage with them, and look at what we can do to build those microeconomies in the municipalities, etc.
Beautiful, beautiful. No, I really, you mentioned my exposure to the German system. It is actually that the whole German industry post-World War was built on this dual training system, which is built in the education system. It's non-negotiable. You don't graduate if you haven't done workplace work, and it's integrated in the degree, in the diploma, in the studies. You don't finish and then go and get experience. You finish by the time you finish, you have also seen the workplace and you have demonstrated that you understand the content and you can work and produce value. Which I think our CETA system is meant to do that. But I'm also the work integrated learning with or without CETA needs to happen, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that's important. And also interesting is that while we focus on world at undergraduate level, and in other countries it's not only at undergraduate level. And I know when Professor Bauer was our Vice Chancellor, he often had discussions with me. He wanted world war those research students as well.
Yes.
Now, one of the students we hosted from a university in Thailand, He was doing his doctorate, but he came to do his will here as well.
Wow.
Because I think at any level, and I think that's what University of Waterloo has shown as well, at any level, your engagement with your industry partners, and when I say industry, it's broadly government, community, commerce, whatever. I think engagement with the industry partners just adds value to whatever you study.
Beautiful, beautiful. And will you say that the DUT's Cooperative Education Program has been quite a pillar in actually solidifying the engagement with these broad stakeholders because of the WIL program?
I think it has, not just in terms of the industry partners. I think in some countries internationally, but also with organizations like the CETAs,
yes,
etc. It has been that, we run a World of Work Careers Fair every year. Or we used to. This year we obviously can't run it. In August every year. Last year, we had 170 organizations participating, 170, which makes it the biggest at a university in the country. And that was purely because of relationships. And the one thing when you have a relationship with some organizations in a particular field, those industries spread the word to other organizations in similar industries.
Yes.
So we keep on generating more, and we allow industry to speak for us. And I think, as I said, this is why it was quite impressive that we had such a large. And in fact, the Minister of Labour and Employment joined us. He came to visit it as well, and he even spoke at the dinner that night. And it was interesting that Minister Ngesi as well is a firm believer in will.
Yes, sir.
And the importance of engaging, of institutions engaging with industry.
Yeah.
My feeling is, sorry?
Yeah, carry on.
No, I'm just saying, I think in this country, the government and industries do not use the universities to the extent they should.
And that's the really base on which to build this knowledge basis. Tell me, the relationship obviously is driven by you as the head of the cooperative education, but the relationship is the relationship between the institution and the industry. It's not very much based on the person, Shakeel Ori himself. It's based on there's a systems that you are building that with or without you, those relationships will remain.
Sam, I think so. And even I keep on telling this to industries as well, even if I go to a company, that company is only taking mechanical engineering students. I said the relationship is not with the mechanical engineering department or myself, it is with the entire university.
Yes.
And that's how our MOUs are signed. When we sign MOUs, I may initiate it, but it's for the university. I hope the relationship is not with me alone. Obviously, you would always have some colleagues who relate better to you than to other people.
Yes.
But in terms of will, we have to get the academic departments involved. So mine is firstly to initiate the relationship and maintain it, but the academic has to go there. In fact, one company was dropping, and it's a big company, was stopped taking our students 1 year. So my colleague went and investigated why. They actually told us, we have a very good relationship with you in Corp. We see you guys all the time. But we don't see the academic lectures, and those are the people who are missing. So unless they come to visit us, we won't take your students.
Wow. And I hope the same applies to industry partners, because companies have got this tendency that when somebody was driving a particular initiative, a relationship with universities, when that person goes, the whole relationship just collapses.
That happens sometimes. We find that, and in fact, I think in one of the professions that there's a high turnabout is a human resource department.
Yes.
Because from year to year, we find people are changing. We're sending emails. You were at World of Work last year. There's no response. We investigate. No, the HR person has changed. And the HR people really move around.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate. And I think when we engage with the industry, that needs to be noted. They need to come up with strategies not to build things around people, relationships around individuals, but to build a system so that everybody else, they need to centralize data and networks.
I think so, but also I think, Sam, the whole issue is about staff retention. What I think our companies don't do enough to ensure they retain their staff. I think staff retention is just as much as having a good recruitment strategy.
Yeah.
And I've seen this example in the Thailand companies. Their number one strategy is about staff, HR. And the GM there, and I think you met him, Mr. Sampad, who's been down here a few times.
I remember.
He's always said, if the staff are happy, and he has got a staff of 26,000, he says if the staff are happy, the bottom line takes care of itself.
Absolutely.
Now, we tend to follow the Western route of looking at the bottom line first.
Yeah.
And that's the wrong strategy.
Yeah. Sure. Lovely. Thank you so much. When we come back, I want us to move on now. And I know because of this topic, then we have SASCE, which you have been with SASCE for a very long time. I've learned a lot from you. And our late gentleman from Pentec, it's not called Pentec now.
From Brian.
Brian. What is Brian's name?
Brian Fox, yeah.
Oh man, may his soul rest in peace. That is one man that has taught me so much about work integral learning in cooperative education. He has left us quite a lot, and I'm sure you have carried on from him.
Yeah.
And we need to honor him. When we come back,
agreed, Sam. I actually still use some of his slides in my presentations, and I did credit him for it. He's the developer, Brian.
Yeah. When we come back, let's talk about the Southern Education, Southern Services for Education. Yeah, SASCE, Southern African Society for Cooperative Education.
Yes.
Lovely. We'll talk about that when we come back. I just call it SASCE. It's easy, but we must always say it in full so that people know what we're talking about. We'll be back.